Harry, thank you for coming to St. Gallen to visit us. It's a big honor for us to have you here in St. Gallen talking to our students. And I feel very privileged to be able to, join this conversation and the conversation that we had before with the students. It was incredibly interesting. We discussed about the industry, we discussed about Novartis, we discussed about the finance function, we discussed about careers. And so it was a very complete session. But I have a few questions left. One thing that struck me is the intensity of capital market transactions that Novartis did. So Novartis did numerous acquisitions, it did numerous spin-offs, it also did an IPO, it separated from other businesses. Quite a fascinating story. How do you guide those decisions in practice? What's kind of the strategic thinking of Novartis being so capital market oriented?
Thank you, Claudio, and thanks for having me here at this great university in St. Gallen. Pleasure to be here and great students. And so overall, when you start on a certain journey for transactions, I think the key is to have a clear strategy in mind and full alignment with the executive team. Of course, the CEO leads that, right? And then also with the board. And in the end, also with the key shareholders. But of course, there you can also only announce it once you plan to do it. And so our key guiding light was that we had, when I became CFO at Novartis in 2013, I was then before that 10 years already in the pharma business. But the key was that we had several underperforming businesses from a financial return standpoint, either loss-making or had quality issues or didn't grow as much. And there was a key step back situation when also financing contribute. And I have always my vision that we should purely focus on pharmaceuticals. But of course, you have to align everybody around that. And that is important, the strategic vision of where to go to. Because otherwise, you can keep doing certain acquisitions and divestments. In the end, what have you achieved? You just have another conglomerate. So we are in 2013 with first acquisition of the oncology products of GSK and some divestments of vaccines and animal health, we started to focus the company in our core business. And that was then later on also with the Alcon and Sandoz spin very clear. And in the end, after basically almost 10 years, we became a pure play pharma company. But that was the guiding light, pure play pharma company in the end.
And it was a strategy as opposed to opportunity driven.
Completely. The strategy was clear. And then, of course, you have to find the right opportunities because you don't want to do fire sales, right? You have to, on every asset, do the best deal for your shareholders. And it has to be good for the organization too. And so it's completely, and if something didn't work out, we had to do it a little bit later, right? Because we were not under huge time pressure because we're not a failing company. We were okay performing, but we could do much better. And now you see it, right? Since 23, we are a pure play pharma company. And if you add up the market cap of Novartis, which has significantly increased, and then Sandoz and Alcon, we have done well for our continuing shareholders.
I read an interesting article over the weekend about the impact of AI in the workforce, especially about graduating individuals, so people just leaving now university. And it was making the point that especially functions where AI can substitute, not augment someone's capability, like it was making a point like computer programming, but I guess also that counts for reporting and accounting. The impact seems to be relatively large. What do you say, first of all, is that true? Do you see that impact of AI that is having on the finance functions? And secondly, what advice do you have for young people that are entering the market now?
So if we focus on finance, right, I would say there are probably other functions where the impact is much more immediate and much faster. But we are leveraging digital AI in multiple ways. For example, we have completely simplified our financial forecasting. We do top-down leveraged by digital AI. So is that AI or KI, or is it basically advanced statistic models? But anyway, digital AI we have completely changed the way we do forecasting. Beforehand, we had an 8 months bottom-up process. Now we do like a 2 months top-down. And it frees up so much resource everywhere in the company. So we leverage it there. Part of that, we also reduced our, already a couple of years ago, our business planning and analysis headcount. We did. We also have an obligation to become more productive. In financial reporting and accounting, we also use digital AI for T&E fraud analytics, for fraud prevention with double payments or vendors. All of that, right? You can use it fantastically. And but on the other hand, we're also introducing at the moment a new SAP system, SAP for HANA, which has a huge effort. Now, will that bring overall efficiencies? Yes, it will. But we're also upskilling our people. And the vision would be that you also can support a dynamically growing company with a similar amount of people, or over time, a bit more productive. So I don't see in our case, huge structural changes, but over time. And I think by saying over time, that gives people the time to upskill and to get ready for the new situations.
What do we universities need to do to prepare young people to be ready for that world?
Oh, I would say every course has to have digital AI as a key component. People have to be able, in all aspects of their work, to completely use large language models and bots and ChatGPT, and so on, whatever the model is. And you have different models that check each other and all of that. I have to say, students, and of course I have kids that are more in the student age group, but also what I see from others, colleagues, what their kids can do in high school, it's amazing. But you have to nurture that. Not everybody has that kind of intuition to do it, but nurture it, and it has to be part of, and then applied cases, right? How to use it. Otherwise, it stays a buzzword. Right? I think the danger of any of these things, it's so big buzzwords that people give up. But if you give it, clear courses with practical applications, I think it will open new worlds, and people are much more capable and valuable in the workforce.
So they're going to work with it, and they're going to work with it on real projects, Absolutely. On practice projects. Yes. How do you mention the tension at Novartis and in your role between the purpose of the organization, which is to help patients, and at the same time also satisfying shareholders? Novartis has done a number of huge share buybacks, huge transactions in the order of $15 or so billion. How do you manage that tension? On one side, you will have people in the organization that will say, let's invest more in this development of this drug, and on the other side, you also have to deal with capital markets. How do you manage that tension in the organization?
And the good news is that because of our productivity gains, of our cash flow increases, we can satisfy our shareholders. Return of capital via an always increasing dividend in Swiss franc per share, as well as a reasonable level of share buybacks, in order, of course, to continue reward ongoing shareholders. But we do that more opportunistically, especially when we have cash available. Wouldn't we not find enough M&A and BD&L deals for excellent medicines and therapies, right? So we have these 4 elements of capital allocation. The first we do is, of course, R&D investments, R&D and launch investments and CapEx investments to run our company world class and to always increase top line and pipeline. It's kind of the cash machine that's there. And that brings fantastic medicines, which is the base of our business. If we do not create fantastic medicines and therapies for our patients, we have no basis, right? So that's the key always. That's what we are all proud of in the company. The second one is to find external opportunities, because our internal pipeline is important and we have very good advances, but there's always external opportunities which we have to look after and see if we can advance therapies. And then there's the side of allocating to our shares with dividend share buyback. And with our cash flow, we can optimally satisfy all 4 of them. That's why the financial performance is so important. The other element is more about the global health, or versus a for-profit business. Right? Clearly, our key business is for profit. Right? And there we have to get paid for our medicines It's a business. And we have to develop great medicines and therapies that save and extend people's life. And then we have to get appropriately rewarded for that. And then within that, if we are successful, as we are, we can carve out an element of non-for-profit business where we apply our capabilities in manufacturing and R&D and distributing. And that's what we do in malaria, with leprosy, with sickle cell, in underserved populations. But it has to be carved out, and it has to be also distinct from the for-profit business. All of our people are very proud of that. And of course, also our shareholders want us to be good citizens. We want to be good citizens, right, and do good for the world. But the key business has to perform, and we have to get paid appropriately for the medicines.
Your children are soon graduating. And, you're obviously a very proud father. But as a proud father, what do you say to them? How should they think about their careers, their lives going forward?
So first of all, I'm glad that sometimes they still ask me and listen to the elderly father. You always have to watch that you stay connected to the younger folks. But I'm really happy they ask my wife and I what we think about the different moves. One is already in the workforce, well established. The other one doing MBA after some work experience. The third one getting into college. But my advice would be, as I also mentioned to the MBA students today, find your passion. That's, we are in a situation where you have education systems and you can have experiences where you can find what your true passion is. Many people in the world don't have that luxury, but you have to use it. And one thing is, of course, to think a lot about what you want to study. But also during the studies on great universities like here in St. Gallen, you have so many opportunities to explore. But please explore. And the next thing is I advise everybody to take internships to find out what you like, but also what you don't like. And that's, I think, important. When you find your passion and you figure out you're good at it or what it takes to be good at it, then usually good things happen.
I like your point. So experiment, and during your study times, do internships, do practice projects, etc. On one side, you learn how to apply, for instance, AI, as we said before, or some of the models learned in class. But at the same time, you also learn to figure out a little bit what you're good at and what you like.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. And of course, one element, I'm kind of a big company guy. Right? I was in the military, 13 years Procter & Gamble, over 100,000 people. Now Novartis, 75,000 people. But some people even start their own companies. Try that, or do it together with a group of people, right, in the right way. Of course, you have to still study. But, take that time. That's kind of given as a privilege to you to figure out what you like and what you want to do for the next maybe 10 years with your life, right? Maybe not forever. Things can always change. But I think that's a privilege and luxury, and if people take advantage of that and are achievement-oriented, good things happen.
Harry, thank you so much for being with us. It was an impressive session with the students. I really also enjoyed our conversation. It was a big honor to have you. And I very much hope that we will see you back in St. Gallen. Our students are benefiting. I'm benefiting. It has been a great session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio, for having me. Thank you to the whole team for having me here. Well-prepared session, fantastic engaged students. Would be very happy to be back. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry.